listener production.
Hey, Chris Spear with you. Welcome to The Briefing. Aussies are being urged to boycott some of the world's most popular retail brands after their sale of childlike sex dolls online. Campaigners say the dolls normalise child abuse, with platforms now using dodgy tactics to get around strict Australian laws and past our border police.
Replica children designed and produced for men's sexual use. So they're overwhelmingly little girls, they can be toddlers or they can be infants.
That chat with one of the women spearheading the campaign against the dolls here in Australia is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Cassidy. It's Wednesday, the 5th of November.
Hey Chris, and to you listening, the head of our top spy agency is warning foreign agents from at least 3 countries are willing and capable of carrying out assassinations on Australian soil. In a major speech in Sydney last night, ASIO's Director General Mike Burgess didn't name the countries but described the threat as real.
It's entirely possible the regimes would try to hide their involvement by hiring criminal cutouts, as Iran did when directing its arson attacks. ASIO and our law enforcement partners are acutely alive to this threat and are working around the clock using all our powers to protect Australians from this threat.
He also warned that Australia's social cohesion is under threat and our social fabric is, quote, fraying, saying it's deliberate and being fueled by individuals or groups looking to advance extremist and divisive policies.
Grievance is growing, intolerance is rising, inflammatory rhetoric and behaviour is being normalised, anti-authority beliefs are spreading, fueled by 3 distinct but connected cohorts: the aggrieved, the opportunistic, and the cunning.
Russia, Iran, Islamic extremist group Hizb ut-Tahrir, foreign paid influencers, and Australian neo-Nazi group the National Socialist Network were among those mentioned in his speech, the NSN specifically being singled out for exploiting complaints about immigration and cost of living to raise its profile and white Australia views when it hijacked the March for Australia rallies back in August.
Also grabbing his attention was the role of AI in supercharging online radicalisation and disinformation, with Burgess warning it's created more challenges and potential dangers than ever before. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. He ended his speech urging Australians to push back against polarisation and reminding us that while the threats are real, they're not insurmountable.
One of the most powerful and polarising former vice presidents in US history, Dick Cheney, has died aged 84. Cheney served as the United States' 46th vice president between 2001 and 2009 as the right-hand man of George W. Bush.
I believe you're looking at the next vice president of the United States.
He died of complications relating to his long-battled cardiovascular disease and pneumonia while surrounded by family.
Cheney was a Republican best known for being a hardline conservative during his lengthy political career. He helped lead the response to the September 11 terror attack and was also one of the key architects of the War on Terror, or Iraq War, which saw troops enter into combat on flawed intelligence about weapons and related programs, which Iraq turned out to not possess.
There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt that he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us.
Despite his critics on the left often comparing him to a Star Wars villain.
They wouldn't call me Darth Vader for nothing.
By his supporters, he was known for being a fierce advocate for the US, its allies, the Constitution, and protecting American citizens. In a statement, George W. Bush says Cheney was a decent, honourable man of integrity and high intelligence who'll be remembered as one of the finest public servants of his generation, while his family describe him as a man of courage, honour, love, and kindness.
Yeah, and Cheney was actually distanced from the Republican Party in recent years after actually labelling President Donald Trump a coward and also the greatest ever threat to the Republic, among other intense criticism. And he even went as far as voting for Democrat Kamala Harris at the 2024 election, which may explain why we're yet to actually hear any word from Trump on his passing. However, flags have been lowered at the White House since the news broke.
Back home now, where Commonwealth Bank has been dubbed Australia's shonkiest company by Consumer Group Choice for the 4th time for making bank off the country's most poor and vulnerable. It comes after CommBank refused to refund customers who are receiving Centrelink payments $270 million in fee charges after ASIC found they should have never been charged or charged very little to begin with by being automatically moved into low or no fee accounts. A few weeks later, the company celebrated making a $10 billion profit.
Oof. Now, also making Choice's Shonky Award list this year is Temu for its dodgy sale tactics and fast fashion, our energy retailers for confusing pricing tactics, a plug-in heater that doesn't plug in, and HCF Health Fund for being the worst offender for insurance phoenixing, which means basically rising premium prices in dodgy ways to try and avoid government oversight. Now, Choice has been handing out these extremely non-coveted awards for the last 20 years, and it's basically in a bid to sound the alarm on dodgy operators, services and products so that Aussies can stay clear.
Yeah, and if you were wondering why none of those Aussie sunscreen brands made the list, remember the ones like Ultraviolet who were stripped from our shelves after the creams were found to not even come close to their sun coverage claims. Well, Choice says that while that was undoubtedly their biggest investigation of 2025, because the issue's still ongoing and there's a lot of potential players up for blame, it's letting that play out entirely first so it can pin down the main villain. Perhaps we'll see a sunscreen brand or manufacturer make the 2026 list.
Netflix and other major streaming sites could be forced to spend tens of millions of dollars a year making or buying Aussie TV shows under new content quotas being pushed by the government. The new laws will be introduced to Parliament tomorrow, requiring streamers with over 1 million subscribers like Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime and others to spend either 10% of their total Australian expenditure or 7.5% of what they earn here on producing locally made drama, documentary, art education and children's programs.
Yes, and in practical terms, that means a company like Netflix could be forced to pay up to about $100 million on producing local content. So while we do have similar quotas here for free-to-air networks, Arts Minister Tony Burke says these laws are about keeping up with the changing nature of viewer behaviour and protecting the sector in Australia as it faces uncertainty due to things like AI and the US tariffs imposed on films made outside of America. He also says it's about representation, saying locally made content not only helps us better understand ourselves and our neighbours, but helps the world see us too, which, looking at the Bluey effect, is so very true. Now, look, producers and actor unions are calling this a landmark law for the Australian screen industry that ensures a future for Australian content. And essentially what this means for anyone listening is that we are hopefully going to be seeing more cracking shows like Boy Swallows Universe or Heartbreak High hitting the streamers like Netflix and, like we mentioned, Amazon Prime, etc., etc.
And the star who captained England on the soccer pitch married Posh Spice and is world-renowned for bending it like only he can, has been knighted by King Charles, officially becoming a Sir.
It was such a special moment. You know, I've been lucky to have won things in my career and done things and played for my country and captained my country. But without doubt, this is the moment that makes me very proud. And in all honesty, it's extra special to receive a knighthood for not just my sport, but the important work that I do with children.
Yes, so that was Sir David Beckham receiving the royal honour this morning with his wife, from today now being known as Lady Victoria or Lady Beckham.
Oh, and I'm sure that's a title she absolutely adores. Now, Beckham is one of the world's most known footballers who debuted in the English Premier League back in the 90s playing for Manchester United and became one of the most commercially successful athletes of his era, dedicating his time to charity work, including for UNICEF since 2005. Now, look, Tara, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't expect to wake up and see this morning, but I shouldn't be surprised because he did make the King's Honours list earlier this year. Thoughts on this, though? He's certainly not the first celeb to be knighted.
No, I mean, like, if we think about people, there's Sir Paul McCartney, Sir Elton John, David Attenborough, Mick Jagger, Michael Caine, and I mean, we've long seen celebrities and stars receive knighthood from the royals, even Hannibal Lecter or Anthony Hopkins and Professor X, Patrick Stewart, they're knights. And look, while not all of them receive it for charity, Beckham actually did that and his football achievements, but the other celebs, like, they're picked because they're stars who've made major contributions in their field. I mean, what would the world be without the Beatles or David Attenborough documentaries, Chris? Really, not a world that I want to be in. So I think fair honours, fair knighthood there.
Absolutely. Look, that is it for our headlines for today. Coming up next is your deep dive, Tara, into the major retailers dodging our laws to swindle child sex dolls into Australia. Have a listen to that deep dive. It's coming up for you next.
There's been a concerning rise in Australians ordering childlike sex dolls online from retail giants like Shein, Temu and Wish. While authorities say they're cracking down at our borders, campaigners want more to be done to keep them from predators' hands. Yesterday, Shein announced it was removing all forms of sex dolls from its sites globally after France threatened to ban it for selling child abuse dolls to its residents. While here in Australia, pressure is mounting on the government to take a stronger stance on other brands like Temu, who continue to make use of loopholes and try new ways of getting the dolls into the country. Here to discuss this topic today is Collective Shout's Caitlin Roper, the woman spearheading the campaign here in Oz. Caitlin, thanks so much for joining me on the briefing. Can you start by telling me more about these dolls, their features, and why they're so problematic?
So these dolls are child sex abuse dolls, and essentially they are lifelike, anatomically correct replica children designed and produced for men's sexual use. So they're overwhelmingly little girls rather than boys, and they can be little girls, they can be toddlers, or they can be infants. And they come with penetrable orifices. So that's typically vagina, anus, and mouth. And I call them child sex abuse dolls just to reflect the fact that they are being used to practice sexual abuse of children.
And how did you first learn about them, and where did you first see them being sold?
We've actually successfully lobbied at Collective Shout a number of major online platforms. You would really be surprised how prevalent they are trying to get these products removed. So we've called out Instagram, we've called out X and gotten some of these products removed. We've also campaigned against Etsy and Alibaba and Wish and Made in China, and we've gotten these dolls removed from all of those platforms. So that's how mainstream they are, that they can be sold on Etsy, these illegal products that encourage men to sexually abuse children.
And so have you had some success with the campaign, and also where's still selling them?
So recently we found these dolls on Temu and Shein. So we did expose them, we called them out, and we got our supporters to get in touch, and they sent over 400 emails from memory. And Temu quietly removed the items but didn't respond. So we knew we were going to have to be vigilant and keep monitoring the platform. And they have come back. And what we've seen is that the sellers are getting a bit more sneaky. So whereas before they would openly advertise them as children and as being for sexual use, now we're seeing they either sell them in parts, so you can purchase a head separately, a disembodied head or disembodied torso or legs or whatever it is, or else where they used to market them as mini or little girl or flat-chested, now they have the same products but use terms like adult, 18 years old and things like that to make it look like it's an adult when it's obviously a prepubescent child that it's modeled on. What they're doing more recently is they're taking the products and selling them, but they're not even identifying them as being for sexual use. They're claiming that these disembodied child sex abuse doll heads are for displaying earrings or wigs or to practice makeup application.
Wow.
So, but no one's buying that. But then I'm seeing the same products marketed as sex dolls on other platforms. There's really no denying they are child sex abuse dolls. They're illegal in Australia, and Temu are willing to ship them here illegally.
And that was part of my next question, that these are actually illegal, at least in Australia, and because they are considered child sexual abuse material. So how are they being sold online to different countries, including here?
Well, that's right. So they are illegal in Australia. Our government actually has really good laws, some of the strongest laws in the world on this. And while they are illegal in a number of different countries, states, jurisdictions, they're not illegal everywhere. So a lot of these dolls do come out of China, which is where I believe Temu and Shein are based. So while we do have these really good laws and Australian Border Force is often intercepting these dolls and seizing them, these companies are still selling them. So they're still trying to get away with it.
Since you guys have been campaigning, sites like Temu have changed their tactic a bit and are trying to kind of get around Australian borders and authorities to still get those products here. What else can you tell me about that? Is it just the language that they're changing in the ads, or what are all the different tactics that they're using?
Even like I said before about marketing them not as sex dolls, but as for makeup application practice or for wig holders or jewelry holders. Like, the whole idea is ridiculous. Imagine having a child sex abuse doll head like on your bedside table to display jewelry. Like, who wants that? So it's so far-fetched and ridiculous, but they're really just pulling out all the stops and doing whatever they can to try and get around these laws. But, they're not getting away with it because we're ahead of it. We see what's happening, but we need these platforms to actually step up and either ban these products and ban the sellers completely, or introduce a policy or do something, because what they're doing now, just quietly removing them and then letting them come back and then quietly removing some, not all. Like it's not good enough. They're hosting these products that are illegal child sexual abuse material and allowing and encouraging men to practice and facilitating their practice of child sexual abuse, which has real world impacts for children. When you normalize and legitimize the abuse of children, that harms actual children.
Absolutely. And I understand some of the manufacturers are actually going as far as telling buyers that they will tell them how to assemble the dolls themselves.
Yeah, a few years ago when I was doing research for my book, I did come across one particular child sex abuse doll manufacturer who was trying to come up with all these ways to get around different laws so he could ship the dolls places and people could get them or men could get them. And, one of them, for example, was like, I will sell you like a tiny couch and inside the couch will be this doll, or I'll sell it to you in parts, or another thing that they do is they'll give the doll very large breasts in thinking that will help them to get around it because it will look less like a child, and then they can remove the breasts later if they want. So one of the examples as well was that he said, I will send you a doll without any penetrable orifices, and I'll give you a tutorial online on how to actually make the penetrable orifices yourself. So in theory, there would be no problem shipping that doll, and then they could turn it into child sexual abuse material themselves.
That's so concerning. And luckily, like you mentioned, Australian police are managing to stop at least some of these dolls at the border and confiscating them. But they did talk about the fact they're seeing an uptick in the number trying to come through. How concerning is that for you?
Oh, it's very concerning. We're over here trying to fight the sexual exploitation and sexual abuse of children and men perpetrating these crimes. But we're seeing with this new technology and then with AI as well, new ways that men can enact sexual abuse and exploitation of children, and even ways where children don't have to be present. Because another trend we're seeing in this space is that men can send in a photo of a child, and a child sex abuse doll manufacturer will make a replica child doll modeled on a specific child in the world. A man can purchase that and do with that what he wants. So I think there's this idea sometimes that, this is awful, but at least it's not an actual child being abused. But it doesn't really work that way. There's so much overlap, and this is facilitating new crimes of violence against children.
And it feels like more than ever before, there's more awareness about this kind of issue. Police are cracking down harder than ever. Do you think we're actually making any dent in actually successfully stamping out this kind of behaviour? Or, like you mentioned, with the rise of new technology, it's just getting worse?
I'd like to think that we're making progress, and I believe in some ways that we are. In other ways, like I said, the new technologies, there's just new ways all the time to facilitate the sexual exploitation of children. We're seeing it with AI and nudifying apps and deepfakes and AI-generated CSAM, where existing child sexual abuse material, so this is photos or video of actual children being sexually abused, AI can learn from that and create new AI-generated CSAM. So it's fictional content that never happened, but it's using existing abuse of children. So it's re-traumatizing victims again, creating new fictional abuse of them. So there's all these ways, endlessly new ways, it seems, to sexually exploit women and children through technology. So we're always trying to keep up, always trying to get on top of it. But, the laws are not as fast as the technology, the technological advancements. We've always kind of playing catch up.
So concerning. And like you said, any kind of behaviour like that, it normalises it, which is only going to harm kids in the real world.
Absolutely.
What needs to happen from here?
It's a great question. So we need some strong laws in terms of like AI and these new ways of facilitating child sexual abuse material. We need the platforms when it comes to child sex abuse dolls to take action. We need them to have some strong policies, because we do have really good laws in terms of child sex abuse dolls in Australia. Like I said, we've got some of the strongest laws in the world. Our government's been really great in this space. But we also need people to step up and be like, I'm not going to buy anything from Temu and these platforms that profit from selling illegal child sexual abuse material. So I think if people just said, no, I'm not going to be part of that, I'm not going to facilitate that, I'm not going to financially support companies that do this, then we might actually get somewhere.
Caitlin, really great insight. Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining me on The Briefing.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That was Collective Shout's Caitlin Roper speaking with me there, and that's it for this episode of The Briefing. I'm Tara Cassidy. See you next time.